She pointed a gun at me, right there in my own front yard in broad daylight. Her hands were trembling, her voice was shaking, but that finger on the trigger was steady. And the craziest part, she wasn't a criminal. She was the HOA president standing 10 feet away from me, screaming that I owed her $100,000 because my tree crushed her pink BMW. What she didn't know was that I used to run the FBI, and she was about to learn the difference between power and control. When I retired, I swore I'd live quietly. No more briefings, no more phone calls at 3 a.m., no more chasing ghosts across state lines. I just wanted peace grass under my feet, a good cup of coffee, and a neighborhood that didn't make the news. Hawthorne Ridge seemed perfect. Cul-de-sacs lined with trimmed lawns, American flags, smiling families waving like they were auditioning for a real estate ad. But I should have known better. Perfection is usually camouflage. 48 hours after I moved in, I got my first welcome notice taped to my door. Please ensure all trash bins are color compliant and stored out of public view. Violations may result in fines. Karen Hollingsworth, HOA President. The name alone sounded like trouble. And sure enough, 2 days later, she was on my porch. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, pastel tracksuit, and that clipboard she carried like it was a weapon. She didn't shake my hand. She inspected my yard. "You'll need to trim that hedge down to regulation height," she said, squinting at a bush older than most marriages. I smiled politely. "Of course, I'll get right on it." She nodded satisfied like a general giving orders. "We keep this neighborhood perfect, Mr. Hale. The HOA is what keeps chaos out." I almost laughed. If only she knew how much chaos I'd seen. For the first few months I played along, paid the dues, cut the grass, even showed up at one of her HOA meetings just to see the circus. There she was, sitting at the head of the table, ruling over her little kingdom like a tyrant in yoga pants. Every topic was absurd. Someone's shutters were the wrong shade of gray. A kid's basketball hoop disrupted curb harmony. She ran that room through fear, not respect. And I'd seen that before. Different uniforms, same disease. Then came the letters. One about my mailbox being faded. Another about my porch light being too bright. Then a noise violation. Apparently my grandkids' laughter after 8 p.m. broke her sacred peace. It was laughable. I dealt with cartel bosses and cyber criminals, but nothing prepared me for a suburban dictator with a clipboard. Still, I stayed calm. I kept every letter, every photo. I was retired, but old habits die hard. Then the storm hit. It rolled in out of nowhere, rain like knives, wind like freight trains. I watched from my window as trees bent nearly in half. When the lightning flashed, I saw it, my oak tree 40 feet tall, ripping right out of the ground and toppling straight onto her driveway, right onto her pink BMW. The sound was biblical. Metal crunched glass exploded, alarms blared. I stepped outside soaked, staring at the wreck. Part of me felt sorry. The other part thought maybe the storm had just issued its own HOA violation. The next morning she came screaming across the lawn, robe flying, hair wild. "You? This is your fault," she shrieked, pointing at the mangled car. "Good morning to you too, Karen," I said, sipping my coffee. "Your tree destroyed my car." "It was a storm," I told her. "Acts of God aren't my liability." She jabbed her finger at me. "I'm the HOA president. You will pay for this." I smiled. "I'm sure your insurance company will be thrilled to hear your ruling." That was the moment she lost it. From that day, it became war. She sent the HOA board to inspect damages. They took pictures of the tree like it was a crime scene. She filed a negligence report against me. I attended the emergency HOA meeting she called just to hear the nonsense firsthand. Karen stood at the podium, voice quivering with anger. "This man endangered our community." "His negligence," I interrupted. "Karen, you should stop before you say something you'll regret." Her lips curled. "Or what? You'll file a report." I leaned in. "You'd be surprised what kind of reports I can file." She had no idea who she was dealing with. That night I went through HOA records, every bylaw, every budget. Patterns appeared fast. Duplicate invoices, maintenance fees that went nowhere, contractor payments for jobs that never happened. She wasn't just bossy, she was stealing. I sent the file to an old contact, Elliot Briggs, still high up in the bureau. Got a neighborhood tyrant for you, I said. Run it quiet. He chuckled. You always did have a talent for finding trouble. The next morning, Karen escalated. She hired a cleanup crew on HOA funds to remove hazardous debris. Translation: chop up my fallen tree and bill me for it. I stepped outside as chainsaws started. Touch that tree and you're trespassing, I warned. We have HOA authorization, one man yelled. You have Karen's authorization, not mine. Karen came stomping down her driveway, phone in hand. His land is our land. Everything in this neighborhood is under HOA jurisdiction. I smiled. You just said that on camera. Her face drained of color. That night she left a note under my door. You've made a very dangerous mistake. I'm not afraid of you. I stared at the words for a long time. People who aren't afraid don't write notes in the dark. I locked the doors and watched the security feed until sunrise. The next few days were chaos. Karen printed flyers calling me a dangerous homeowner. She plastered them on mailboxes on the clubhouse wall, even emailed the entire neighborhood. Pending board review. Possible expulsion. Expulsion from a house I owned. I laughed out loud. That was when I realized it wasn't about the car anymore. It was about control. I showed up at her next meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Karen slammed her gavel like she was in Congress. We are here to discuss disciplinary action against James Hale. I stood. The tree was healthy, inspected, and legally classified as an act of God. She snapped, Your negligence endangered this community. Funny, I said. I didn't realize your BMW counted as community property. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Her face turned crimson. Enough. Effective immediately, I motion to fine you $5,000 and suspend your community privileges. One of her own board members muttered, Karen, that's not. You can't second your own motion, I said, grinning. More laughter. She was unraveling. You think your government job protects you, she hissed. No, I said quietly, but yours won't. Then I dropped the bomb. $12,000 missing from the HOA budget. Duplicate contractor payments. You want me to show the IRS silence. Pure terrified silence. 2 nights later, my mailbox disappeared. Then trash appeared on my driveway. Classic intimidation. Then one evening I came home to find a dead crow on my porch. Its wings spread wide, a note tied to its leg. You should leave while you still can. That was it. No more games. I called Briggs again. Run her record. The report was worse than I thought. Fraud. Embezzlement. Prior HOA scandals in 2 other states. She'd reinvented herself here under a new name. I printed it all and left it for the board anonymous. By noon, the whispers had started. By 3, Karen was at my door furious. You think you can ruin me? She shouted. I didn't ruin you, Karen, I said. You did that yourself. Her face twisted with rage. You're finished. She stormed off. That night I saw her outside again, trying to pry open my mailbox with a wrench. I stepped out quietly. Evening, Karen. She froze. You know tampering with a mailbox is a federal crime, right? You can't scare me, she stammered. I'm not trying to, just reminding you. I took 1 step closer. I trained the people who arrest folks like you. She went pale and ran. The next morning a small box sat on my porch. Inside, a single bullet. Polished. Shiny. Deliberate. I didn't even bother calling the cops. I just smiled. So that's how you want to play it. 3 days later, the final showdown came. 9:17 a.m. I remember because my coffee was still hot. Tires screeched outside. Karen's white Range Rover stopped in front of my house. She jumped out red-faced, holding a manila folder. You've been spreading lies about me, she screamed. I walked onto the porch. Everything in that folder is public record. You think you're smarter than me? She shrieked. You think your FBI badge makes you untouchable? I sighed. Karen, you need to calm down. Don't patronize me, she yelled, and then she reached into her purse. I saw the glint before she even pulled it. A silver handgun. Small. Civilian legal, maybe. But her hands were shaking like leaves. My training kicked in instantly. "Karen," I said quietly, "put the gun down." "You ruined my life," she cried. "You humiliated me. You did that all by yourself." "Apologize," she screamed. "For what?" "For not bowing to you." She raised the gun higher, eyes wild. The neighbors were screaming now, phones out recording. "Karen," I said again, "you're on camera. You fire that weapon and you're done." She hesitated, eyes darting toward the blinking red light on my porch cam. Then she screamed and fired into the air. The sound split the neighborhood like thunder. I didn't flinch. "That was a felony." "Karen," I said, voice steady, "and you just did it on camera." Sirens wailed down the street within seconds. Blue and red lights flooded the cul-de-sac. "Drop the weapon," the officer shouted. "This is private property," she yelled back. "He threatened me. Drop the gun." She froze, then her knees buckled. The pistol hit the grass with a dull thud. They cuffed her right there on her perfect driveway, dragging her past the crushed BMW she'd never let go of. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president," she screamed. "Not anymore," I whispered. They took her away, still shouting. The neighbors stood silent, phones raised, faces pale. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air. I bent down, picked up the spent shell casing, and rolled it between my fingers. I'd seen worse endings. But this one felt different. It wasn't triumph, it was exhaustion. Because power like hers doesn't just vanish. It infects people. It spreads. By that evening, the story hit the news. HOA president arrested after pulling gun on neighbor. My porch, my house blurred on camera but unmistakable. Reporters swarmed the neighborhood. FBI agents showed up too, Briggs men. "You were right," one said. "She's been embezzling HOA funds across 3 states. We're freezing her accounts." I just nodded. A week later, the board resigned. The HOA collapsed under its own weight. Karen's house was seized to repay restitution. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. The following week I got a letter. The handwriting was careful but shaky. "You ruined my life. But you were right. Power made me blind. Maybe one day I'll thank you, but not today. K." I folded it neatly and slid it into a file marked evidence. That was the end. No parties, no victory laps, just silence. The neighborhood finally exhaled. The grass grew back. Kids played again. No one mentioned HOA rules anymore. I went out to my yard where the old oak had once stood and planted a new sapling. Smaller, humbler, but stronger. As I packed the soil around its roots, I whispered, "Welcome home." I don't believe in happy endings. I believe in lessons. And this one's simple power built on fear will always collapse under truth.